Your tire pressure might be wrong right now, and it could be quietly affecting your fuel economy, tire life, and even your safety at highway speeds. Most drivers think PSI is just a maintenance number, something you set and forget, but that number determines how your car grips the road, how much heat builds inside the tire at 70 miles per hour, and how your electronic stability systems respond in an emergency. In fact, one of the most infamous automotive scandals in history, the Ford Firestone crisis, centered around a seemingly small pressure decision. A large SUV with a high center of gravity was recommended to run at just 26 psi to soften ride and reduce rollover tendency. The result was widespread tread separations, more than 270 deaths, thousands of injuries, a federal mandate for tire pressure monitoring systems by 2007, and the collapse of a century-long partnership. So the question isn't just what PSI should you run, the real question is this: what is that number actually doing to your vehicle, and what happens when it's wrong? When we talk about tire pressure, we often throw around numbers like recommended PSI or max PSI. But before any of that, it's critical to understand what the air inside the tire is actually doing. At its core, tire pressure doesn't carry weight, it redistributes the load. Imagine a balloon supporting a weight. The more you inflate it, the firmer and smaller the area of contact becomes. Let it deflate a little and the area spreads out. That's the same physics at work between your tire and the road. Lower inflation pressure increases the contact patch, the area of rubber touching the pavement, stretching it wider and causing more sidewall and tread flex. Higher pressure reduces that footprint, concentrating the force over a smaller surface. This difference in contact patch size isn't cosmetic. It directly affects how much energy the tire consumes just by rolling. Engineers refer to this as rolling resistance, the force that opposes motion as a tire deforms and recovers with every rotation. According to the Transportation Research Board Special Report 286, for passenger tires inflated between 24 and 36 psi, each 1 psi drop below the intended pressure increases rolling resistance by about 1.4%, which in turn increases fuel consumption because more energy is lost to tire deformation rather than forward motion. This happens because underinflated tires flex more as they roll, and every bit of rubber bending and unbending converts useful engine energy into heat. More heat means more wasted energy and lower fuel efficiency. But heat doesn't just waste gasoline. Excessive flexing also generates significant thermal stress inside the tire structure. The internal plies, belts, and adhesives, the very components that give a tire its strength, are designed to operate within a certain temperature range. When a tire runs underinflated, its sidewalls and tread are forced to flex far more than engineered, generating heat with every rotation. This heat weakens the adhesives between belts, increases internal air pressure, and can lead directly to tread separation and blowouts, especially at sustained highway speeds. Braking performance and grip are where tire mechanics become impossible to ignore. At first glance, it seems logical that a firmer, higher pressure tire would stop more effectively, and in some ways that's true. Lower rolling resistance keeps the tire stable, but this comes at a cost. Controlled studies indicate that overinflated tires can require 10 to 15% more distance to stop in wet conditions compared to correctly pressurized tires. The reason is simple. The rubber loses its ability to conform to tiny road surface variations, reducing friction and compromising grip, especially when water is present. A smaller contact patch from overinflation makes it easier for water to lift the tire off the pavement, a phenomenon known as hydroplaning. In practical terms, an overinflated tire may start to hydroplane on wet roads several miles per hour earlier than a properly pressurized tire, turning a routine corner or braking maneuver into a potentially dangerous situation. If tire pressure changes contact patch, heat, and braking behavior, then the next logical question is this: what happens when manufacturers decide on the number printed on your door jamb? That number is not a suggestion pulled from thin air. It is the inflation pressure engineers used when they validated the entire vehicle system. When a car company develops a model, they don't just test engines and crash structures. They test suspension geometry, steering feedback, brake balance, and electronic safety systems at specific tire stiffness, and tire stiffness is directly controlled by PSI. A tire is effectively part of the suspension. Increase its pressure and you increase its vertical spring rate. Lower it and you soften it. That change alters how the vehicle transfers weight during acceleration, braking, and cornering. Suspension kinematics, the precise way control arms move through their arc, are tuned assuming a certain compliance in the tire sidewall. If you change that compliance, you subtly change camber gain, toe characteristics under load, and steering response. Engineers calibrate steering effort and feedback around that known stiffness. Even brake proportioning is validated with a specific front-to-rear pressure setup, because weight transfer under braking depends partly on how much the tire deforms. Electronic systems depend on it as well. Anti-lock braking systems and electronic stability control are programmed based on expected tire behavior at the recommended cold pressure. ABS algorithms monitor wheel slip ratios. Electronic stability control monitors yaw rate versus steering input. Both rely on predictable tire deflection and grip characteristics. Change the pressure significantly and you change how a tire builds lateral force or how it behaves near the limit of traction. The system still works, but it is no longer operating in the exact window engineers used during validation testing. This is why the placard specifies cold pressure. Cold means the vehicle has been stationary for several hours so that temperature-induced pressure changes don't distort the baseline. That cold value is the engineering reference point. It's the condition under which braking distances were measured, emergency lane changes were performed, and durability testing was completed. What exactly engineers are optimizing for? The answer is not a single objective. It is a balancing act across safety, comfort, efficiency, and durability, each pulling the pressure in a slightly different direction. Start with safety. When automakers determine recommended cold inflation pressure, they run controlled tests that measure braking distance, emergency handling, and high-speed endurance. SAE test procedures, including steady-state cornering, step steer, and split mu braking, all conducted at specified cold inflation pressures. Change the tire stiffness significantly and the measured yaw response and stopping performance shift measurably. Heat management is also critical. At validated pressure levels, internal temperature rise remains within the tire's design limits during sustained highway driving, reducing the risk of structural degradation and blowouts. Engineers measure belt edge temperatures, sidewall deflection, and endurance cycles to ensure the tire survives worst-case scenarios. But safety is only one dimension. Comfort matters because vehicles are designed for real drivers on imperfect roads. Tire pressure changes vertical stiffness, and that stiffness affects how much impact energy from potholes and road seams is transmitted into the cabin. Lower pressures absorb more vibration but increase sidewall movement. Higher pressures sharpen response but transmit more harshness and noise. Manufacturers conduct ride and noise evaluations on varied surfaces, measuring cabin decibel levels and vibration frequencies. The chosen pressure aims to keep ride compliance within consumer expectations without undermining structural integrity. Fuel economy adds another layer. Rolling resistance testing, often performed on dynamometers using standardized SAE procedures, shows that inflation pressure directly affects energy loss as the tire deforms. Increasing pressure generally lowers rolling resistance, which can improve fuel efficiency. Manufacturers factor this into corporate fuel economy targets, but they cannot simply raise pressure indefinitely to chase efficiency because that would compromise other priorities already validated in testing. Then there's longevity. Even tread wear depends on maintaining a balanced contact patch under typical load conditions. Excessively low pressure increases shoulder wear due to sidewall flex. Excessively high pressure concentrates load toward the center of the tread. Tire endurance tests evaluate structural durability over thousands of miles at specified pressures to ensure belt integrity and carcass strength remain stable over time. Thermal stability is also assessed under sustained speed and load conditions. Internal temperatures must remain within limits that preserve adhesive bonds and structural materials. The recommended pressure is part of that durability envelope. So the value printed on the door placard represents the point where safety validation, comfort testing, efficiency targets, and durability standards intersect. But in the real world, that number moves because the environment is constantly changing around your vehicle. Consider ambient temperature changes. A widely cited engineering guideline, often called the 110 rule, states that tire pressure changes approximately 1 psi for every 10 degrees Fahrenheit change in temperature. If you set your tires to 35 psi on a 70-degree Fahrenheit day and overnight temperatures drop to 30 degrees Fahrenheit, your pressure can fall by about 4 psi. That drop is not trivial. A 4 psi reduction represents more than a 10% deviation from the validated cold setting. In winter, that means many drivers are unknowingly operating below specification for months at a time. In summer, the opposite occurs. Altitude introduces another variable that most drivers never consider. Tire pressure gauges measure gauge pressure, the pressure relative to the surrounding atmosphere. As elevation increases, atmospheric pressure decreases. Climbing roughly 1,000 feet in elevation changes atmospheric pressure enough to shift gauge readings by about 1 psi. The tire did not gain air, the surrounding air simply exerts less external pressure. At high elevations, the relative pressure inside the tire appears higher on a gauge. Also, the amount of weight your tires carry directly determines how much air they need to safely support it. This relationship is defined by standardized load index tables used globally by tire manufacturers. A tire's load capacity increases as inflation pressure increases, up to its rated limit. That is why the same vehicle often has two different recommended pressures listed in the owner's manual. If pressure is not adjusted accordingly, the tire must compensate by flexing more. That flexing produces heat. Elevated internal temperature is one of the primary accelerators of structural fatigue in pneumatic tires. Tire pressure is often blamed for problems it did not create. Uneven tread wear, for instance, is frequently attributed to inflation errors, yet alignment angles, camber, toe, and caster have a far stronger influence on wear patterns. Pressure influences how a tire behaves under load and temperature, but it does not correct mechanical geometry.